Hey guys, my name is Alex and welcome to a new channel I am starting. If you enjoy the content, please like, subscribe, hit the bell notification. And I'm not sure exactly where I'm going to be taking this channel, but I am going to be trying to upload daily videos on different broad markets, S&P, QQQs, Dow, and individual stocks as well as from time to time hitting things like crypto, Bitcoin, Ethereum, things like that. So you can expect from me at least one upload every day, but I plan to at least do a few each day, and in each video I think there's a place missing on YouTube, first of all, for a style of technical analysis which you probably haven't seen before, um, and also someone who has successfully been trading the markets the last couple of years. So I think there's a real need in the market right now for my voice particularly, and I'm going to do the best I can to bring you the best analysis that I possibly can in the markets each time I make a video. And I also think that instead of um, making these really long-winded 20, 30, 45-minute videos, which especially with technical analysis can really put people to sleep, I want to try to make them shorter, and on the daily videos maybe do one, possibly two different stocks and keep them maybe under 5 minutes per video. I think that's a niche that could really um, gain viewership on YouTube right now, because most of the TA videos you see are just on and on and on for an hour or more about all the different things in the market. And I don't think necessarily that everyone wants to see every single stock in the market. So I'm going to try to break them up individually into different stocks I follow on my watch list, and just do one at a time, maybe 5, 6, 7 minutes per video, and maybe upload a couple per day, see how that goes. If it doesn't work successfully, I may change to the style everyone else uses, but of the longer content. But we'll see how this works for now. So in this introductory video, again, just thanks for joining me on this video. In this introductory video, I want to give as quickly as I can a basic introduction to the style I use, so I can point people back to this video, because I'm sure I'm going to be getting a lot of questions about what are you doing here, what are you doing there, and I can point back to this video just for a brief recap of how I like to view broad markets and how I like to look for entries and things like that. So we've got a chart here open of the SPX 500, which is obviously the chart that includes the futures and things like that. And the time frames I like to work on mainly when it comes to basic stock charts, things like Google, Facebook, all that stuff that can be found in the broad stock market. I like to use the daily time frame, and I like to use the 1 hour time frame. And every once in a while I will come down and use a chart on the 5 minute, but it's not as often. And that's really when I'm trying to zone in and see if I can find a spot to kind of hone in closely for the beginning or end of trends. And I do use that from time to time, but it's mostly the daily and 1 hour. Now, on this chart of the SPX 500, obviously this includes things like post-market, after-market, things like that. Whereas the chart of SPY, right, will not. So on this time frame, instead of using a 1 day and 1 hour, I like to use 1 day and 3 hour. But we'll get to that in a second. So when I'm starting with any chart, I always want, let's erase all this stuff that I've got on there. So I always want to get a long-term picture of exactly what's going on with the chart. I zoom out basically as far as I can, and I look at this, and to me this looks like certainly it's in a long-term primary uptrend. So I want to try to find if I can nail down exactly where that long-term primary trend line belongs. And I usually like to get at least two really strong points, but the third one is really where I start to see these longer term trend lines evolve. And as you can see here, we've got obviously the March 2009 lows, which a lot of people are going to remember. Then you've got this potential touch point here in October, it looks like September, October of 2011. And then you've got these, let's see, January 16 lows. So let's see if we can kind of get something going here. And to me, this is looking like the possibility of something strong here. So everyone knows the March 2009 lows. That's obviously the start of this major uptrend we've been in for the better part of a decade now. Got another touch point here in 2011 and just nailed it here in 2016. So I'm really liking what I'm seeing here with this trend line, and this just kind of to me cements everything with this additional kind of two inflection points here. Obviously this is the 2018 December low, and you just kind of want to do your best to align this and get this touching as many places as you can. And to me, this is starting to look really good. I've kind of got this cemented in here. Got a nice touch point here. Great touch point here in 2016. This doesn't touch, but it's got a close, very close reaction within 10 or so S&P points. And then obviously this was the COVID panic in early 2020, started in February. So I'm really liking what I'm seeing here, what I put there. So I would call this a long-term primary trend line. So that's basically the first thing I want to do when I'm looking at a market. So you can see here I've got a long-term primary uptrend. Now what I want to do next is also using the daily time frame, is I want to get an intermediate term uptrend and see exactly what's going on, or downtrend depending on what the overall market's doing. But in an uptrend, you guys will see like these kind of waves. This is how markets always work in uptrends to different degrees. So I want to try to additionally, I've got this long-term trend line, so I want to find a mid-term trend line too and see if I can find anything that works. So I can kind of clearly see here, to me this looks like it might be something that's valid right about here. Starting in April 2020, I've got 1, 2, 3 touch points. Then I've got a fourth touch point over the period of 5 or 6 months. To me that looks pretty solid. And then I can kind of see, it looks to me like there might be a potential for an upper channel as well, following along with what I've done here. So I want to clone this and just see what that looks like if I put this up here. And sure enough, this looks really good. So you can see we had this touch in September 2020, and then it looks like we've got 3 other touch points right up here in April, and then early May. So this is, you know, to me this isn't something that's just happened by chance. This is really how markets work. You want to look for these types of patterns and channels to try to determine exactly where you're at in market cycles. And this is again on the daily. So I also see a potential intermediate trend line here. So let me just clone this one more time and see how this looks right here. And again, this looks really, really good. And it's almost right there on the center line, right? Got touch point, touch point, touch point, touch point. So this is starting to look really good here. And what we can see is an obvious intermediate strong uptrend on the S&P, coupled with a long-term strong uptrend. So as you can see, there is really no reason to be panicked about this market or interested in shorting this market really until we break this channel, right? But the other thing is the strength of this market has shown itself in that this is November 2020, and this intermediate term trend really truly hasn't been threatened for the better part of 8 or 9 months yet. It's just been one steady. We had a couple of daily wicks that broke below this channel, but there was never a daily candle, not even one, that closed below this intermediate term trend line. So right now, basically, we've got a trend that's in the strongest part of the intermediate channel and the strongest part of the long-term channel. And as of yet, there's really no reason to be short this market. So I want to bring you in. I told you before the other time frame that I like to use to get a broad picture of what's going on the SPX 500. I like to use 3 hour on the SPY. On a lot of the other charts that I look at, I will be using the 1 hour. So let's just take a look at the 3 hour here and see if we can zone in and get I call these inside these channels like this. I would call this like more of a shorter term trend or a minute trend. You're kind of trying to really hone in and get the best entry you can. I like to use options sometimes, and if you get bad entries on options, you can lose a lot of money quickly. So that's why I like to zone in further, sometimes 5-minute and 3 hour, to see exactly what's going on and get the best entries I can. So I would take my trend line, and I can see that looks to me like this is strongly a contender for a short-term / minute trend line. I really like this. This has been in development since June 3rd. I like what I'm seeing here. You're not getting all of this kind of crappy whipsaw action we had in April and May. This is pretty well defined here, and I'm confident that this is a meaningful trend line that's in place. So what I've got here when I'm looking overall at the S&P 500, I've got a strong long-term uptrend, right, coupled with this strong upturn intermediate channel. And then lastly, to add even more fuel on this fire, I've got inside all of this, I've got a minute trend / short-term trend that's also in a strong uptrend. So anyone that's telling you, this market needs to be shorted right now, we're coming to the end of this bull market, possibly, but why are you looking to short? To me, everything in this market, I like to look at confirmation of price action. I don't listen to things like, the Elliott waves are saying there's a 5 of 5, it needs to correct now, or the Fed is doing this or that, bonds are doing this or that, and therefore the dollar is going up, the market needs to tank, anything like that. Any chart I'm looking at, I'm always looking at individually and looking for confirmation. I don't take anything anyone says in their analysis too seriously until I can see it myself. And that's basically where I sit, and I always look for my own price confirmation and don't try to stick biases I may have about what I think or feel is going to happen in the market into my analysis. And to me, there's nothing even remotely shortable about this market until perhaps these levels up here, right? And this to me looks like around possibly late July. We've got a intermediate channel term top that's coming up that's going to meet with this price action on this short-term channel. So something like this could happen, right? But now that doesn't necessarily mean that all of this is going to correct. Again, I want to look for more confirmation. So sometimes what happens when these break down, now again, even if this breaks down from this short-term trend line, you are still in the strongest part of an intermediate term uptrend. So you want to be really careful whenever you're trying to short things into this type of market where you've got a strong long-term uptrend and a strong intermediate term uptrend. Now, having said that, I am well aware that things like the Buffett indicator and things are way expanded past where they have historically been. I am well aware of all that stuff. So to me, yeah, at some point here in the future, we are going to get a correction. And if and when that happens, we can possibly expect a correction of some magnitude, right? If and when this intermediate term channel breaks. Who knows if and when that's going to happen? Obviously, at some point it's going to happen, so I don't want to say if, but yes, it will. But if that does happen, when that does happen, again, my targets basically are going to be this long-term uptrend, right? When that breaks, I'm going to always expect coming back down to this mean trend line. So yes, at some point in the future there is going to be a big breakdown in this market, but we just aren't seeing it yet, and I don't want to plan on a big breakdown until I see it actually developing in the charts. And the first indication of a real breakdown to me wouldn't necessarily be this short term. Let me get back to the 3 hour here. Wouldn't necessarily be this shortest term trend breaking, although I would definitely be paused on any longs right when this breaks down. I'd want to see a return at least down to this intermediate term, but to me, you'd really start to get a little bit worried about this market if and when this middle line of this intermediate term trend breaks. So if this market were to come down here and show some daily candles down here and then just chop around in this zone, yeah, this would set off some alarm bells to me, right? But until this bottom part of this trend, of this intermediate trend term is to break down, I'm not even really remotely concerned about this market. And a lot of times also additionally what happens, markets tend to really give you a lot of warning before they break down, but sometimes they don't. Like this COVID situation was pretty unique. It just basically nosedived out of nowhere. But a lot of times what will happen on these is you'll kind of get these breakdowns out of these channels, and a lot of times they like to come back here and test the bottom part of the channel and the trend line before completely breaking down. So you can get something, that breaks down over the period of months and years. So you don't necessarily get one of these things where the bottom just falls out. And again, you want to always look for all your confirmation in these markets and just try to be as, that's something I like to say to people, is when you are looking to trade the markets, the best thing you can do, a lot of patience basically, because the biggest mistake people can make when they're trading is A, not to be patient, and B, is not setting the correct trend lines. A lot of people like to use trend lines, but a lot of people use them incorrectly and on time frames that are too short, and that's how they get bad entries and just aren't understanding the full complexity of what's actually happening. You see, in order to get, eventually markets will reveal themselves, but sometimes it can take a long time, right? I am very confident in this channel right now, but it's developed over a year, right? It's taken a year for this thing to fully develop to the point where it's I'm very comfortable saying that this is definitely what's happening right now. So yeah, um, if and when this intermediate term trend breaks down, we will start looking more into the potential scenarios there. But for now, um, just going back to the 3 hour, what I basically am looking for um, when this breaks down, and it hasn't yet, I'm not looking for any short opportunities at this point, but what I would be looking for, like I said, is some sort of a bounce off of this midterm, uh, this middle point of this intermediate trend, which if it broke down around the end of July would put us at about 4273 on the S&P. So, you know, about 8-9 S&P points, not a huge amount, but my first thing I would be looking for was a bounce off these areas, right? And just to continue up in this channel, because that's what we've been seeing for the period of an entire year now. And until that changes, I have no reason to doubt the markets. I just don't. So that's what I'll be looking for. Now, like I said, if I see a daily candle breaking down into this zone, first of all, I won't be interested in anything long until I see a bounce off of this midline, a reconfirmation that this market looks to be headed back up. And again, shorting in this area is just really, really tough. I don't want to take a short on a breakdown of this short-term trend either, just because, let me show you what happens a lot of times. You'll get these breakdowns, right? But then the market will reveal itself in another way. We could come back up here just because overall this strength of this market is so substantial right now, and you could start a new set of trend lines, right? For instance, this thing could start bouncing off of a new trend line that it sets for itself, right? And start doing something to this effect, right? It could happen. So we have to wait and see. Just shorting in this type of environment is really tough. Like I say, my first instinct really when I want to start really preparing for a potential short is going to be on a daily breakdown of this middle intermediate term trend line. So right now I'm only looking for long plays, and that's kind of where my head's at with this overall market right now. And yeah, that's where I'm sitting at right now. If you're looking to go long, this is kind of a tough spot to do it, right? We're almost at the top of this channel. I'm kind of taking a wait and see approach right now on the overall markets to see what happens at the top of this channel if we start getting a breakdown here. So that's my thoughts basically, and I want to give just some more ideas on some different charts that I'm looking at. Let's go ahead and get rid of all of this, all these drawings here. So I've got some other charts that I kind of want to look at and just show you. Again, whenever I go to a new chart, I always want to start with the daily time frame. And as you can see, a lot of these I've already done the work on them. So for instance, on AMD, going back to 2015 and prior, there is no long-term really trend line to me that makes a lot of sense other than this one right here. Yes, you've potentially got this, but that's even longer away. So you've got AMD, which to me is in a, let's just remove all this stuff just so we can kind of see this more clearly. So you've got, to me, potentially this right here as a long-term uptrend. But what I always want to do is, because remember what I was talking about before, inside these trends, you'll have a lot of this kind of whipsaw action. So my goal is always to try to pick a position to go long at these long-term uptrends. So in order to do that, what I like to do is to use a 1 hour time frame, which is what I was talking about before. And I like to use a 1 hour time frame over the period of between 2 weeks, and sometimes it takes up to 4 or 5 months for these to develop, but when it happens, it can be really exciting. So I like to take these trend lines and try to find points of potential breakout. So if I were looking at AMD, I would look at this top back here and take this other top, and I'm basically looking for a breakout of this, what I would say is an intermediate term downtrend. Remember, trying to match my long-term uptrend. So my first point of interest would be here in, let's see, broke out here on April 2021. But again, these markets, you need to give them time to reveal themselves. So what you want to do is you want to see if there's some sort of clear channel or uptrend set out of these breakouts that you can use. And to me, this sort of looks like a choppy mess. You could potentially set a trend line like this, right? And that's what I would do here. To me, this looked like the most valid potential trend line breaking out. But if you were to take this breakout here at around 84, 82, you would have a lot of warning bells. And even looking at this, you can kind of see there that line I set potentially was valid. You've got like a touch point here, here, and here. But your breakout at 84.69 seemed to kind of fail here at around in the 84.60 range, and you kind of got this breakdown back. Now this is a bad sign for when you're looking at a potential breakout that's taken, let's see, this was January 21 and this is April. So over the period of, 4.5 months. And usually what happens is when these break out and they're going to go, the longer the consolidation period has been, the stronger the breakout's going to have been. So to me, this is a cause for a lot of concern here. I don't see a really good series of higher highs, higher lows. I kind of use this to kind of just sort of bully a position here, but it broke down, and so I would be really concerned in this area, and I would definitely exit any positions that I got long right here. I would exit here, and as you can see, that ended up being a good idea because it fell right back into this channel and started again. So again, I'm going to keep the neat thing about trading this way is it gives you a opportunity to just completely ignore days and months and sometimes even years of just choppy noise where I'm not interested in any of this stuff because it's below our intermediate term 1 hour trend line. This is when I start to get interested. Only in this period after 4.5, 5 months. I don't care what's happening in here. And the reason I don't care what's happening in here is because to me there's no chance for a really strong breakout until we breach our long-term intermediate downtrend line. So this is, again, we had another chance here. Let me just zoom in on this. So again, I'm on the 1 hour chart. We got another chance for a breakout here. So this would be our potential entry right around these areas on the daily. But remember what I said, you want to try your best to see if you can get a, I'm never happy with like a breakout that's just flat. I want to zone in here and see if I can get a 1 hour trend that makes a lot of sense. And to me, this is kind of a nice setup into the breakout, comes back down here and tests it. I like this a lot. So I'll set this as sort of a short-term slash intermediate term breakout here. And to me, this is a much stronger play than this, which didn't show anything and just immediately, even if you were to set a horizontal trend line here, this even broke that rather quickly. This is all warning stuff in here. So I would not want to continue looking for a breakout in AMD in these zones. But here, the difference, as you can see, was that we kind of have a nice little zone in here of support, support, support. This to me looks like a potential support zone. Even the horizontal support was holding pretty nicely, and then you got this big breakup. So AMD off to the races since then. Obviously, this to me is our new short-term slash intermediate support zone, but I wouldn't consider anything coming back down and hitting this until we got this short-term trend line breached. And to me, AMD has all the signs of continuation to the upside. Why in the world would I want to be short this stock right now, right? You've got a stock that's in a long-term uptrend and also broken out over the period of almost a year here and is in the strongest part of a short-term trend. There is absolutely no reason to be short AMD right now. The only thing you would be looking for is long entries, and that would be, to me, the next long entry is if AMD were to come in and break this zone here to the upside and potentially show a continuation to the upside of this short-term trend. So AMD, that's how I'm looking for entries on the long side. I am looking for these long-term breaks of these downtrends back to the upside. That is basically what I'm doing always. And again, when you are honing in on these, yes, sometimes you'll get breakouts that fail, but you're never putting yourself into such a bad position where things are going to correct on you 10, 15, 20%. It just doesn't happen just because of the fact that you are paying careful attention and setting these trend lines at the best point of a potential breakout. And you can see right in here on a 1 hour chart that it's failing, and you're getting out as soon as you can, right? So to me, this is like the safest way to play the markets with the most potential for return, playing these long-term 1 hour and daily trend breakouts and trying to match them with intermediate and short-term uptrends in the 1 hour. This is the strongest and best way to play the markets, and this is the way I've gotten a lot of good entries on stocks and done fairly well over the past couple of years with my trades. So that's AMD. God, this video is almost 40 minutes already. I really didn't want to do that, but just give you guys a couple more ideas in what I'm looking at. Let's see, something I wanted to look at here was the chart of F5 networks. Just some interesting things going on here. You can see here we had this super long term since November 2018. Again, we're on the daily time frame. I was watching this develop. So again, you're just ignoring all this crap, all this garbage for the period of almost 2 years, right? Well, a year and a half anyway to the March lows. But there's no play in here. You're not interested. When you first start getting interested in this is in the breakout here in April 2020. And as you can see, it was very, very clear. We set a 1 hour uptrend after that breakout in 2020. And let's see if we can get that here. And it was very clear that this was the dominant trend line off the 1 hour. But you can see here this kind of faltered and broke through. So I would be getting out of my position right around here at 145 if I entered, say, at 140 or so, or whatever, in somewhere in this area. If I entered, I would be out because this broke. Okay, this 1 hour trend line broke, and I would be again looking to see if something were to potentially develop in this. And a lot of times what you will get, and this is kind of the illustration I wanted to show you, is you will get these breakouts, and sometimes they will fall back into the channel, and then sometimes they will come back to the top of this channel, which is now turned into support, bounce off, and then continue. So what I'm basically looking for in here would be a break of these highs where it broke out in May 2020, then we got it, and it's sort of been off here. So this is the pattern that I like to use time and time again. Look for these long-term breakouts in stocks. Look at the overall pattern on what's developing using a daily time frame. And let's see, so I want to show you guys maybe two more. Merck right now is kind of interesting. So Merck, let me get rid of that. Merck has got this really, really interesting thing developing where it's clear that we are in a long-term strong uptrend since the April 2018 lows came down and touched again in March lows of the COVID crash. Had another touch point here in March 21. So this to me is a strong and dominant long-term uptrend, but you can see we are also matching here with a strong intermediate term downtrend. So this is going to be very, very interesting to me to see how this plays out. I am looking for the potential right now. Let me zoom in to the 1 hour, right? And this is very, very clear to me. Couldn't be any more clear. If this, you can clearly see here two lines of a channel developing. If indeed this breaks out here, instead of coming up here and failing, coming back down here, this will be my entry point. Right in here around $78, $79, and I will be looking for a continuation, potentially an even massive move to the upside, continuing inside this channel on Merck to the upside. And who knows where this could take us, right? And my exit, of course, would be at the first signs of a failure of this 1 hour trend line. So that's Merck. Obviously this has not shown itself to have broken out of this intermediate term trend yet, so we need to just watch this still, right? There's always a potential it could come back down in here and sort of play off this triangle and then have sort of a decision point. Something's got to happen to the upside or the downside here, and the limit of when that happens looks like in still a ways off, March of 2022. So this is just potentially something to look at here. You know, the overall markets are so strong now here. Why couldn't Merck potentially participate? So I'm going to be looking at this zone here as a breakout zone. And if it doesn't, no big deal. Again, we are just biding our times. We have hundreds and thousands of different charts we can look at, and 99% of the time on these charts we're ignoring everything, just waiting, being patient, letting the charts reveal themselves, and letting the true trends that are really going to be really strong potential breakouts develop and show themselves. And we're just potentially waiting patiently, waiting to see what these breakouts are going to do and if they are going to develop. That's basically the entirety of my trading style. And I'll get into some of this other stuff later, but I have some kind of momentum indicators here that I like to use as well to try to see if I think potentially these breakouts could go longer than last for longer than I'm thinking initially. But again, this 1 hour intermediate trend line would be the thing that I would use, and if it were to break down, that would be the catalyst to exit. So that's Merck. I wanted to show what I thought was kind of an interesting one, ATOS, which has given really interesting on this. It's given so many different opportunities over the course of the last 2, 3, 4 years. So again, I want to zone in. To me, this is a breakout that's happened here since March of 2019. So this is working over 2 years now. The stock ATOS has broken out to the upside. To me, this is very clear. This is your breakout trend line right here. You can see it very clearly even on the 1 day, which I like. So let's zone in here to the 1 hour. And what I would like to see on this stock here is a return back to this breakout line here and catch our intermediate trend line and start back up again. So that's what I'm going to be watching on ATOS. Again, I am on the 1 hour time frame here. I'm going to be looking for a breach of this trend line and a series of higher high. That doesn't necessarily need to happen all the way back here, right? This could start doing like this and giving us a series of higher highs and higher lows. I am more or less expecting something like this to develop just because it's a breakout that's been in development over 2 years. So it could happen, but again, we need some confirmation here. This hasn't happened yet, so we need to watch and see what's going to happen here. And there's always the potential that this could just come back down here and fail and break all the way back, even down through our long-term support line, right? But what I wanted to show in ATOS here is over the period of the last 2 years, it's even on the 1 hour time frame given a lot of chances for even these short-term gains, right? So I like to use the same system I do is catch these long-term downtrends on the 1 hour and daily, and all the time frames work exactly the same. I've just found that the daily and 1 hour tend to work best. So I set here, you can kind of clearly see letting this develop over a long period of time. You could have used either that or maybe something like this, but in either case, it's very clear that when this broke, this was the trend line that you need to set. So you're basically letting this run out of here, and you got some nice price action all the way up, touched this long-term trend line, and broke down again. And then it, let's see, where did it repeat? It repeated, this was a short-term pop here, and then we can see if we're patient, we let this develop over the period of 2-3 months. This is a very clear long-term downtrend line on the 1 hour, and then when this broke up, you set your 1 hour trend line, and this thing ran, right? It ran all the way from 214 all the way up to 6 and change. So this was a really nice, and this is kind of what I'm watching right now, potentially coming all the way back down here and breaking up again. So to me, ATOS is a very interesting stock to watch right now, and this is the game plan I use with every chart, every stock, and this is what I am going, the type of stuff I am going to be showing you guys live in my analysis of my individual charts and individual equities each and every day in the markets. Hope you enjoyed this breakdown. Just getting, again, not thorough analysis of anything in particular today. Just wanted to give you guys a breakdown of my trading style, what I do, what I'm looking for, what I'm not looking for, when I feel it's safe to ignore price action in charts, and when I start getting interested. So again, if you like what you've seen here, like, subscribe, click the bell, and I will see you guys very soon in the next video. Probably tomorrow I'll do a breakdown of maybe the SPY and the Qs, what I'm seeing in there. Until then, see everybody again soon, and thank you so much for watching. Bye now.